Hi everyone, get ready with me while I tell you how to love with a little bit of help from Treatise and Sina. Today we will be climbing up the ladder of love, following a gradient from the lowest forms up to the most greatest and highest forms of love. Before we begin, I would like to set the foundation that has basically changed my perspective on what love is and should be, and that is love as a culture. We practice love, like, if not every day, often enough, to the point that it's a ritual. And so even though we do it often, it's the term love, or the concept of love, has become so convoluted. So that is why we are here today, and hopefully you guys can get a new feel and sense of what it means to love. So the lowest form of love, or what's at the very bottom of the ladder, is superficial love. So this includes one-night stands, relationships purely for intercourse, and overall just a lack of raw intimacy. This type of love holds true for both Socrates and Sina, so y'all should keep in mind that sex can be meaningless, and it is meaningless. Like, sex does not mean love. But then the next step from that is sex for procreation. It is still at the very bottom, but there's just something a little bit more beautiful and has a little bit more meaning when it comes to sex, to being able to create a human being, or I guess another organism if we're talking about animals. Next step, Socrates, or more so Diotima, because the ladder of love is Diotima's concept, which she explained to Socrates, and this is Socrates like basically paraphrasing Diotima. The next step are platonic relationships, but more so specifically between men. So back in ancient Greece, societal standards and more so the, I guess, gender roles was very sexist and very exclusive towards women, to the point where men would often have sexual relationships with other men because they were so, I guess, enthralled with themselves and having that power dynamic that they saw women so below them that they would much rather have sexual relations with one another than having relations with a woman, unless it's for, of course, childbearing. I mention this because nowadays platonic relationships aren't as, I guess you can say, favored or prioritized, especially when it comes to platonic relationships between people of the opposite sex. People tend to proclaim that, oh, people of opposite sex can't ever have a platonic relationship, like someone's always going to be bound to have more feelings for the other and kickstart a sort of relationship. However, it is possible, and sometimes it's just so true. And from my experience, like, aside from familial love, the second most greatest form of love I've ever encountered is from my platonic relationships. So y'all should start practicing and favoring your platonic relationships, because they can help you grow. There is a beauty to love between you and a partner, but love between friends is just, it's different. And for those with very strong and stable friendships, I feel like you can second me on that proclamation. Now we're gonna be jumping a few steps up the ladder and skip to the very top of the ladder of love, which is love of beauty itself. So it seems a little abstract and it's definitely new. I feel like, especially in today's society, we don't favor beauty. We can appreciate beauty, but we don't love beauty for itself, if you catch what I'm giving. So one ascends to the top of the ladder with the purpose of loving and living well, often done with God, or the purpose of reaching God. However, I ask you to ponder that, if you went through all the steps of the ladder and accumulated all this love and appreciation and new wisdom, if you're at the top, is love still good? Because once you're at the top of this ladder, essentially you can say that you've loved to the full capacity. And if you have nothing to yearn for, is there even love? Is there more things to love? So keep that in mind, because we're gonna start talking about a treatise on love written by Sina. Okay, so a treatise on love focuses on the concept of love as a quality of the human soul. It also explains, which an aspect that I love, is how rocks could even love, or practically just inanimate objects have the capacity to love one another. So the treatise of love starts off, well, hits hard with the idea, or more so I like to call it the fact, that love pervades all. Love is such a universal thing that it allows for no limitations at all, to the point of who or even what can love. Love binds us to one another, once again driving us towards the sort of harmony and accumulation of all things like wonderful in the world. So without love, you can say that there's no order, and without order, there's no goodness. Keep that in mind, because goodness and love go hand in hand. As goodness increases in the world, say, or love does as well. So if you're spreading goodness, you're spreading love, or if you're spreading love, you're spreading goodness. Okay, with that said, I would like to go back to the fact of love binding us all. Okay, so there's a portion of the treatise dedicated to love of inanimate objects. And it may seem thick at first, but when you make yourself aware of metaphysics and what it entails, you will understand how objects can love one another. So everything and anything is made up of atoms, and atoms are constantly working to unite with other atoms, or you can say are drawn towards unity. And so now compare that to love. Compare that concept of atoms to love. Love and atoms are not measurable, but there is a constant movement between the two that's driving them towards harmony and unity. So keep that in mind next time you call an inanimate object like pointless, or when you call your partner's teddy bear that you gifted simply an object that has no meaning, because that object is loving. It is in the process of loving, because it is made up of atoms, and anything that has atoms is going towards unity. And if our main goal as human beings are to drive ourselves to unity, then so is that teddy bear. Now we're gonna get a little bit more serious. So before I talk about the absolute angle of the treatise, I would like to go back, or like touch base on the question I ended Socrates and the ladder of love, and that is how love can obstruct your growth, or how love can lead you astray. So just like everything else in life, love, although an impressive driver, should be understood, or should be taken with a grain of salt, because you should love in a balance, or should be loving in moderation, because love can lead you astray, whether you've experienced or not. There are definitely examples out there in the world that are constantly proving how love isn't always as good or as positive as we think. Because for example, love can lead you towards addiction or obsession, or just overall dependency on something. For example, loving the feeling of life, or how you feel after an alcoholic drink. If you continue to love that feeling, that leads to alcoholism. Or if you have an obsession with how well your creative content is doing, that will lead you to an obsession of yourself and just always wanting to create content. So in a way, you're obsessed with social media. Loving can lead you astray, but all I'm saying is that you should learn how to have a balance with all the relationships in your life, which brings us up to the question, can love always be good even when you've reached the top? And I say yes, love is good as long as you continue to love with a sort of balance and understanding of everything else around you. Because love allows you to yearn for something that will drive you towards goodness, and it takes a lot of self-control and trust and maturity, heavy on the maturity, to accept balance, because love should push you to be a better version of yourself, not to hide the type of person that you are. I would like to reiterate that I'm not saying that you can't have desires at all, because desires are good to have. Desires make you yearn for things, make you want to grow. Like a positive desire of mine is learning. I am constantly like wanting to learn new things and obtain new knowledge, because I think there's just so much for me to learn out there, and especially because I'm a forensic psychology major and I love psychology, especially when I get to learn more about myself and others, and it really sets you to be more empathetic, because you're given these new perspectives on how people think and how people act due to like the relationships they have with themselves and the environment they have. So I'm always like willing to learn more, but a negative desire that could arise from that is not accepting of my failures. When you learn, you're not going to be able to know everything or all the information given to you, so there will be times where you're going to fail, and sometimes that makes me want to not learn anymore. So I am learning to find balance in what it means to fail and what it means to not get something down on the first trial. So keep that in mind next time you think about your desires and your failures, because love is good, but if you don't know when love is leading you down a different path, you need to recenter yourself and gravitate it, and remember that the ultimate goal is unity and harmony. Like, if it's not with God, then some sort of reflectiveness that allows you to feel more free and makes you feel good about yourself. Let's go back to some, that's a little too much. Let's bring it back to the positive vibes and reaching the top of even Sina's radiant and journey of love. Okay, so anyway, the ultimate goal of the treatise is to illustrate love as a fundamental force that drives all of existence toward divine perfection that will better the quality of one's soul. Like I said, Ibn Sina saw love as a way of bettering the soul, or a quality of the soul. So how you love is a direct reflection of your internal beauty, and so if you can demonstrate a self-realization that can unite you with God or a greater good, for that fact, you have proved that you can love well. I guess you can say love is a bridge that connects us to the divine. So no matter how often you want to give up on love, if you can have a self-realization, just know that those hardships of love that arises is all part of the journey. Because how fun or how passionate would love actually be if it were easy? Sometimes we need the tossles in life to keep us going, to keep us learning. Bring it back to that, to get us going, because once you can take a step back and recenter yourself, the journey ahead becomes a lot more powerful and a lot more beautiful, because you're able to reflect on everything that you have and could continue towards. So I leave you with one last thing, and that is love one another well, because what can be more beautiful than spreading goodness and guiding others towards a more divine life? Actually, there's one other thing that I would like to mention, and that is the fact that I am not a philosopher, nor am I an expert on love. Which I say to that I feel like there's no one who is an expert on love, because there are just so many different ways to love and understand love, but there are ways that can like help us realize our loving styles or whatever. But I have studied these two texts of Plato's Symposium and Ibn Sina's A Treatise on Love, and dissected them well enough that I feel like I was able to gain new information, and I wanted to share that with the world. So take everything that I said with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's not how one should set out to love, but more so reflect and understand ways to love. But love is just such a huge part of our daily lives, and learning to love well can help us live better. So I say, I hope y'all can reflect on your lives and the rituals that you partake in to love better, so you can live better and just spread more goodness in the world. I hope it's not too cliche, but love is just so cool and so unique towards every person that we should ground ourselves, especially in today's society, back to the root of what love used to be, because now it's just, like I said in the beginning, so convoluted and diluted, and expectations that just don't meet everyone's ideas of love. But I digress. Hope you enjoyed this quick little get ready with me and learning how you can love better. Yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. Bye.